You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Innovation Fuel, the podcast that brings you fantastic stories from entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. I am Dave Kiran.
And I am Gelare Farhadian. We are educators, entrepreneurs, and your hosts. Innovation Fuel is our weekly business podcast brought to you by University Canada West. Each week, we explore diverse business models, entrepreneur journeys, experts' insight, and managerial challenges, and how companies stay agile and innovative during COVID-19. Check out our episodes at www.ucanwest.ca/innovationfuel.
So, Galari, what do we got on the docket today? We talk about entrepreneurship and the journey to becoming an entrepreneur or the journey to want to become an entrepreneur. It's pretty challenging, isn't it?
It's challenging. When you have a business idea from beginning, you're so excited about your business idea, but you don't know how to start. You don't know if their business idea is viable. You don't know if there is enough customers out there for you. You don't know if you have a competitors for that one. You think that your business idea is unique. But then when you go and talk with people, you will figure it out, maybe it's not that beautiful as I think, or there is not enough customer for that one. And then what you have to do or how you can get this information. So because it's $1 million information, if you figure it out, if your business idea is viable, if your business idea is good or enough for customers.
And so you said your business idea is viable, and we're talking about product market fit here. And when we talk about product market fit, it's not going to the bank and saying, hey, bank, is this a viable option? It's more about going to finding the right customers, isn't it?
Customers, or even, another entrepreneur that's been in this before. Maybe they have some knowledge about it, or, you can find a lot of synergy and collaboration with another entrepreneur to have a better product or have to reduce your costs.
I think we have the guests here to help us sort of kind of pull all these things together today. So without further ado, let's ignite today's episode of Innovation Fuel with our guest, Colin Weston.
Colin is a sport innovator, entrepreneurship community builder, podcast host, and public speaker. His passion is to reimagine the sport to make this experience more compelling, engaging, relevant, and shareable for fans, athletes, and brand sponsors. So in 2017, he co-founded Startup Vancouver, which is one of our over 40 community chapters of Startup Canada. Colin is the community leader and the volunteer-based organizations that connect entrepreneurs with the resources, events, and people both locally and nationally to help improve their chance of success. Welcome, Colin Weston.
Hello.
Hello, Colin. Yes. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Innovation Fuel, my friend. Glad to have you on the show. Colin, before we start this journey, we got to know a little bit about you. Our audience needs to know a little bit about you. Can you give us the quick goods all the way through who you are and why do we need to know about you?
Sure. I'll try to squeeze down a kind of 7-year entrepreneurial journey into 90 seconds. I'm what I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I was an architect for over 20 years, focusing primarily in the sport architecture space, not just stadiums and venues, but also working at the Olympic game, Pan Am game level, worked here in Vancouver for 2010, and working on what I've come to call the UX or user experience for sports. So the actual events and how the fans, how the players, how the officials, how security, that overlay those experiential touch points across that journey before, during, and after the event, and those heightened moments and designing that. And we got pretty darn good at it. And in 2013, as entrepreneurs do, I saw pain points and opportunities in a lot of sports, especially golf, that was on the decline. at the time. And it's almost $100 billion a year industry. And it wasn't connecting with younger people, to be honest, put it bluntly, basically anybody that wasn't a middle-aged or older white guy. So that's where we first, without getting in, diving deep, because we don't have the time here, that's where we came up with our first entrepreneurial foray or product or experience that connected with a younger audience and knew nothing about the golf industry, really. So I had to build those relationships. So from there, I got involved with, after a couple of years of this crazy up and down journey of almost having what we were creating there acquired for like between $6 and $8 million by two different companies and an investor, and those falling through and not knowing what we didn't know how that even worked at the time, that I got involved with Startup Canada, which has been around for over 10 years, and started getting involved with them with their social media initiatives and develop relationships there. And then 3 years ago, I did two things. I then helped form Startup Vancouver, which is our local chapter. We have over 40 chapters of Startup Canada across the country. That is the voice of over 3.5 million entrepreneurs across the country. And that combined with creating a podcast and having other friends that were doing that. And that was involved in the sports space called the Mod Golf Podcast. And those things were both about community building, connecting with people, establishing authority in a space, and cultivating trust. So it's what I call my get rich slow scheme, which has kind of worked. But joking aside, it is about building relationships. So all entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs that are watching and listening today, that's one of those key takeaways to start with here is build relationships. Build that foundation first, right? You may think you have this great idea and you're going to show a lot of hustle by getting out there and getting in front of people's faces and cold calling. Build relationships. Take the time to do that. Ask questions. Help other people. And that's what I've done over the last 3 years. And that's what I do through Startup Vancouver here locally and nationally with Startup Canada, and also what I do with the Mod Golf Podcast.
That is fantastic, Colin. So you talked about Startup Vancouver. Can you explain it more about it? It looks fantastic.
Absolutely. So usually I put up our banner behind me that explains what it does there. And I just kind of do like a model here and I just put my hands around it. But what it actually says is we connect entrepreneurs. And that the word connect is so important. And we not only do that here locally and provincially, but also know nationally, since like everybody during COVID times, we had to pivot our offerings. Well, the way that we were connecting for the first couple of years, like I said, we've been going for over 3 years now, about 3.5, because we launched Startup Vancouver in 2017. And I approached this as community building in Startup Vancouver as a startup, as a lean startup. We were a bunch of entrepreneurs, a volunteer-based group of entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs to connect entrepreneurs locally here to each other, because entrepreneurship is hard, it's lonely and isolating. So there's that piece. And also to connect them to events, mentors, resources, initiatives, not only here locally, but also using that power of Startup Canada across the country and the resources that they have to connect them. So that is really our why, is that connectivity piece. That then, if you will, that lean startup piece is like we didn't have any money. We didn't have a place to reside. We were all virtual and we're all doing this off the side of our desk. So it's like, okay, well, what can we do? So the first thing we did out of the gate is like, well, let's actually create online community here through social media platforms. We just started with Twitter and Facebook. And we then were sharing the love of all these other events that were going on in Greater Vancouver and all these other organizations. Like, who the heck are you and why you're doing this and why you're showing up at our events and live tweeting and doing this stuff? Is like, because that's what we do. So we, once again, to entrepreneurs, reach out and help. And then that builds trust with people. And we executed at a high level also. So then people were then leaning in. So that was kind of our first phase of Startup Vancouver, of just doing that. And then after that, as you see, just as you do as an entrepreneur, whether it's a product or experience or service that you're offering, you've got to get out of the building. You've got to talk to other people. You've got to talk to potential customers. And that product validation, we didn't want to duplicate what other awesome organizations were doing in Greater Vancouver here. It's like, we didn't want to compete and say, we're going to do a better pitch night than you. We're going to crush your pitch night. It's like, no, you're awesome. We're going to support you. And now we collaborate and we co-present with Volition Advisors on their pitch nights. Both in venue when we used to do that, and also the virtual ones that we do. So we have two legs to our kind of core values, if you will. And the first one that I just touched on there was that we collaborate rather than compete. So it is about building those partnerships. And there's a saying in entrepreneurship that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together.
So I just want to see, that the value that you create for entrepreneurs is connect them together for joint venture, or what is the main problem you're solving for entrepreneurs?
So it's a great question. And what we offer for entrepreneurs here, not only locally, but now because of COVID, now that everything is virtual, we now are able to cast our net for entrepreneurs all across the country. And the value that we offer is to connect entrepreneurs not only to each other, but also to resources in other organizations. Whether it's, and a great example of this is perhaps women entrepreneurs out there that are starting and don't know where to turn. They get involved with us, and then they realize, oh, there's Women Entrepreneurs Center of British Columbia. There's the 51, which is out of Calgary, which I didn't even know existed before. We had them on one of our shows. Whether it's the Women's Entrepreneur Knowledge Hub out of Toronto. And all of a sudden, we're connecting them with all these opportunities and awareness. So in a lot of ways, we're brokering these opportunities by this creating awareness through the connectivity. And the two ways we do that now virtually is we have a weekly show called What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times, which Dave was a guest on about a month ago. Thanks for showing up for that, Dave. And that's what we do through that show is to tell entrepreneurship stories. The people that are watching are then able to then not only participate, but then connect with those people afterwards. So we've had over 100 guests since we've done this. We've done 38 episodes. Hard to believe we've done this in the last couple of months. And so there's that. And the other piece also, and we did this in venue pre-COVID. We did over a dozen of them. And this tied into that diversity and inclusion piece that I talked about before, that making entrepreneurship welcoming and inviting for everybody. So we created what was called Van Startup Stories. And this was a speaker event that was more like a TEDx type of talk for underrepresented communities. We shine a light on one of them every single month, whether we're celebrating women entrepreneurs, Indigenous entrepreneurs, LGBTQ entrepreneurs, and many, many more. And that's when we have this speaker series. And then we transform that now as a national digital platform called Can Startup Stories. And we've done four of them so far this year. Celebrating Black entrepreneurs, celebrating clean tech entrepreneurs. And in January, again, we're going to have one called Mental Health Awareness for Entrepreneurs, which is also something that we were very heavily involved with. So that's what we do. We connect entrepreneurs as this broker, if you will, and also to lead them towards Startup Canada, which has podcast series. They're very active with other digital initiatives and learning opportunities there. So that's a great resource with the Startup Canada website also that people have access to for free.
And so, Colin, with the connectivity piece, like this is so important to entrepreneurs. We circled back on this connectivity piece. You're talking about the networking, the mentors, and this element. More and more as we go as entrepreneurs, that connectivity piece is so important to their success, isn't it?
Oh, it 100% is. And like I said, when I talked about my 7-year journey when I started, and that's one of the motivations why I got involved, was we got everything backwards and we didn't know what we didn't know. And we had some opportunities there right out of the gate of having these kind of ridiculous acquisitions that we thought that's just the way entrepreneurship worked, rather than no, you need to take time and build those relationships. And that connectivity is so important. So I think for students in the entrepreneurship program at UCW and others, you have your heads down, you're in front of your computer or your laptop, you need to get out. I know during COVID times that's really tricky, but one of the things that we did in pre-COVID times is we had something called Van Startup Drinks. And we kind of threw it out there one month and it just went kaboom. And we had over 250 people show up. And it was just this physical manifestation of what we believe, and that is to make entrepreneurship diverse for everybody. So we had people from 19 to 70 show up, but half the people were women. And it wasn't just a bunch of entrepreneurs there just kind of shouting their pitches at each other. People were having real conversations, wanting to help each other and connecting. And that got bigger and bigger every single month. And it was just a great event. Unfortunately, that got shut down in March this year. But what we do with our digital platforms now virtually, we're emulating that, but we certainly crave to get back there for that. And I know that a lot of entrepreneurs would come out, and that was the way to connect. And people would show up for that and stay the entire 3 hours and even show up early. It's an amazing event. And it's just one way that I learned by trying different things. And as an entrepreneur, that lean startup thing of seeing what works and what doesn't and trying different things and a little more of this and a little less of that and just experiment and A/B test. And we did that with kind of a social engineering experiment, if you will.
That is fantastic. So you have a lot of experience with entrepreneurs and you've seen success and failure, right? So if you want to categorize the failure factors for entrepreneur in BC, what you will say?
I think one of the, like with all entrepreneurs, whatever space you're in as an entrepreneur, it is not getting out there and validating your ideas soon enough. That whole customer validation, get out of the building again, use this expression. And we were victims of this or fell prey to this early on. It's part of that lean startup idea that you need to create something that and get it out there and see what people think. So, but as entrepreneurs, there's so much ego and passion involved with it. And you're creating this beautiful baby, what you think is this baby, and you don't want anybody to tell you that your baby's ugly, right? So you have that fear of that, right? But you just got to get your baby out there. And if people say your baby's ugly, make a better looking baby and just learn from that. And I think that's one of the things that happens is that people hold on to ideas too long, whether it's pivoting or recalibrating or even just listening to the opportunity. There's nothing worse than creating, as they say, is creating a solution looking for a problem. And I've seen lots of entrepreneurs. I've had lots of students that I've taught at other institutions that have fallen into that category. And you need to find out if people want to buy it. Are they willing to pay money? What's the size of the market? It sounds like such fundamental things, but I see it time and time again that entrepreneurs fall into that trap. And you need to let things go sooner than you do, and that whole fail fast thing. And you need to learn that. And that's really hard because I've had trouble letting go of things in the past too, because I've loved it. And you've kind of got teased with seeing certain indicators that maybe there is an opportunity here, and you need to let things go sooner and then work on something else and take all the knowledge that you've learned from that thing and then apply it to the next thing. And this whole entrepreneurial thing, it's about, I can get into this for over an hour, but the way we're taught in schools, whether it's elementary school, high school, and even post-secondary institutions, this whole Western culture notion of failure, the stigma and the shame that's attached to that and having a grade attached to that, you need to unlearn that as an entrepreneur because you're going to get beat up and ground up all the time on a daily basis because entrepreneurship is hard. And the whole failure thing, we need to be easier with ourselves and easier on each other. But it isn't a matter of failure, and we've been taught that, right? And quite often I'm going to fail. I'm one of these people. When I was growing up in architecture school, a double whammy. I was a procrastinator combined with a perfectionist, which is a terrible combination. I now embrace that. Good enough, ship it. It's like and let's see what happens. But I had to untangle myself from all of that stuff, and a lot of entrepreneurs still have to do that because we're kind of hardwired as humans going through school. The way that we're conditioned is failure is a really bad thing.
Yeah, it means so you said that you have to go out and soon enough to see if their idea works or not. So what do you mean by soon? Exactly when? So for example, I can have seen an idea. I just have an idea. I haven't even tried for it. But should I go talk about it now? Or should I at least have a minimum viable product, then go and talk about it? So how often is good to go out and talk?
It's never too early. I think one of the rookie moves I made early on, and I've heard other aspiring new entrepreneurs do the same thing, is they think their secret sauce or the IP they're developing, they can't tell anybody, or you need to get an NDA. And I remember one of the first things we were creating and reaching out to have conversations with influential people and then demanding they sign an NDA before they even look at it. They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Because realize that the idea is 1%, if even 1% of what you're doing. And believe it or not, other people may have the same idea somewhere else in the world. Shocking, but true. So a lot of the people you talk to, they don't have either the capacity or the desire. It's not in their wheelhouse or their lane to steal your idea and run with it. So you need to put yourself out there. Yeah, you need to protect yourself in certain ways. So to answer your question, best I can here, it's never too early to start talking to people. And a great example is what we're doing with my company, Reviver Sport Entertainment, with everything we've learned in the golf and sport entertainment space, and the gamification and the technology fueled side of that. Is we're creating something in that space. And rather than thinking, oh, this is really cool, keep it all to ourselves, let's develop the technology, let's find investors. It's like, no, I reached out to partners, people I knew that I met through the Mod Golf podcast, with the PGA of America, with Cineplex, and asking them, it's like, is this something you'd be interested in as a product? Would you pay for this? And then having them be part of the conversation and then shaping the product offering rather than us creating this thing and then you want to buy this, right? Running around. And I use this analogy too. I can grow the most perfect, beautiful peach, the most delicious peach, and going, here, you want this peach? And you're like, no, I hate peaches. No, you got to try this peach. This is the most amazing peach. It's like, no, I hate peaches. No, but just take a bite of this peach. It sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of what you're doing. Is like, go find someone that loves peaches and stop pestering this person that hates them. And so there you go. There's my peach analogy for the day for entrepreneurs.
And Colin, you say product market fit. It seems like we got to find the product market fit. We've got to connect, make sure that there's a customer there that has some of that pain that you're trying to solve with this value. And coming up with the value, Colin, how do we come up with the value? How do we connect that value piece to that customer?
Yeah, well, once again, using the example of us personally, what we're developing, it's adding questions because we didn't even know what the pricing model and even, to be honest, the revenue model would be. Someone like Cineplex with their indoor entertainment centers, one's called Palladium and the other one's called the Rec Room. It's like, are you then going to buy this thing we're creating or units of it like a bowling alley, but it's gamified fun putting? Or do you lease this, or is it a hybrid model? It's like, we didn't even know. So just working with them and figuring that out. So engaging them and truly collaborating as a partner, because they have skin in the game. And for us, we would just be guessing and kind of pulling it out of the air and then saying, well, it's this thing and it costs this much. And then we got this back end maintenance thing and all this for upgrading the games, and without even knowing what their business model is. So once again, asking questions, listening. And that's not sexy, fun stuff. And you just got to get out there. And a lot of people are going to say we don't have the time or we're not interested, but you just got to keep plugging away. So when I say you need to put yourself out there as an entrepreneur and go talk to people, and right now that could be metaphorically, you need to connect with people, whether it's through way too many Zoom calls, whether it's through phone calls. But the main thing I suggest that way to connect it, rather than cold calling, and my personality, I've got no problem doing the smile and dial and just reaching out to people, but that really doesn't work. So it's again about building relationships, getting warm introductions. So whether it's building up on something like LinkedIn, I found now LinkedIn a couple of years ago was a bit of a joke for a lot of people, but I find LinkedIn is this most engaging place for me to build meaningful business relationships, both with Startup Vancouver and also with what I'm doing in the sport innovation space, and being able to establish authority, thought leadership, if you will. So it's a matter of connecting with people. And the best way to do it, again, as I've mentioned, is offer to help people first and ask questions rather than come in hot. It's like, oh, we're doing this great thing and you'll love this. And it's like people, whoa. Believe it or not, whether it's investors or potential customers who are very, very busy already, they hear that all the time. So if there's a way by cultivating those relationships and getting introductions to people that you want, that just, I don't want to call it a hack. That's just making human connections. And that's the way we have to do it, unfortunately, right now during COVID, rather than what we'll get back to hopefully in 2021 here. So it really is about meeting people, getting introductions, offering value for them, and building relationships and not coming in too hot and making it all about you.
Thank you, Colin. So I have one more question here is that because you heard a lot of pitch, you heard a lot of business idea, right? So what are the good elements of the good pitch means and how we have to prepare ourselves for a good pitch?
Great question. And I've been involved, like I said, with pitch nights that we partner with Volition Advisors, which we're back in venue, did over 100 of those for a couple of years and now doing them virtually. And we do 90-second pitches, 3-minute pitches. I've been on the other side where I've pitched a lot. So I think the key is make sure that you're telling a story, right? It isn't just about stats and showing the dashboard of your app or whatever that is. So make sure there's a story that resonates and connects. And you'll find that whether it's investors or other partners, whatever your ask is, and always have an ask at the end. And it doesn't have to be money. It could be, we actually need, full stack developers. We need someone in HR. Whatever we actually need. We need a fractional CFO, whatever that could be. So always have an ask at the end. but realize also it's about connecting with the people that you're pitching with. Because ultimately, with whatever you're creating, you may have the most awesome product, but that racehorse, I'm using a lot of metaphors between peaches and racehorses today here, but if you got that amazing racehorse, but if you don't have the team that's able to bring that racehorse into the winner's circle, investors and other partners won't be interested, because investment and relationships are just that. They're long-term things that you have. So I think with the pitch, the key is make sure that you connect, make it authentic, tell a story, and all at the end, make sure that you have an ask.
One thing that I wanted to just touch on there, Colin, when you're talking about that, you brought something up in there, and you didn't talk about cash. You didn't talk about give me the money, show me the money. You talked about aligning it to something. You talked about individuals I need programmers, I need this element. That story there. So when going into this pitch thing, so not bringing the cash into it, but bringing more of what the need is.
Absolutely. And I think we've all been overwhelmed, or people that are in the entrepreneurship space, or even just the general public, they see Dragon's Den and they see Shark Tank and they think, well, that's how entrepreneurship works. And of course, we know it does not. And that is a show that's made for TV, and it's always about grinding them on the valuation. It's all about the valuation of your company and this and that. So entrepreneurs think that that's what we need. But one key thing to remember is there's other ways to propel your startup, your early growth company forward. And it's always not about getting investors involved. Here's a little hack. Find some customers that are willing to pay for what you're doing. Get some recurring revenue. And it'll be like you're at the high school dance, or you're sitting in the corner by yourself. You're not looking that great. But if you're over there and you've got 10 people around you asking you to dance, guess what? Everybody wants you to ask to dance. So all of a sudden you've got customers, you've got some traction, you've got milestones. That's another thing. Celebrate your wins. Put your best foot forward, whatever that could be. It may not be something big, but it's a milestone. Make sure you celebrate that in your pitch and say what you've done. The worst thing to do, and I've had this with entrepreneurs, I haven't seen them in 3 months or 4 months, and I asked them, I said, so what's new? What have you done? What's going on? And they go, well, nothing really. Not much has happened. That's the worst answer. It's like, well, even if it's like the smallest thing, oh yeah, we've actually got this, we're doing this new test program and we've got this new thing. Whatever those little milestones, those little wins are, make sure you let people know those, that you're moving forward, that there is movement here. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially Canadians, we're also humble. We don't want to share that, but make sure you put that best foot forward and share whatever it is that you've accomplished over the last little while.
So the last question that I have for Colin is, when you're starting to now migrate and grow this business, the biggest challenge that we have is bringing people into our culture, bringing individuals onto the team that are going to be able to do the same thing, that are going to celebrate your wins, are going to be able to be a part of that journey. The challenge of bringing those people out, you have any words of advice to starting up, a venture and having to bring additional people on to support your idea and the development of your idea?
Right. Yeah, I do. And that comes back to culture that you touched on, and with Simon Sinek and your why and the power of why. And it's not what you do, it's why you do it. And if you don't establish that very early on, if you don't have this North Star, or these principles, these guiding principles, because entrepreneurship, it ain't a straight line. It's up and down and you're in the ditch. And if you're, I hate the term serial entrepreneur, because it seems to me as someone that just sees the next shiny thing, or if it doesn't quite work out, they're on to the next thing. I'd rather be known as a successful entrepreneur than a serial entrepreneur. So it's really embeds into culture. And a lot of entrepreneurs think, well, we'll just kind of push on product, we'll just develop this, however it takes, we'll just get this thing going, and then we're starting to see some traction, and we'll figure out the culture piece and our community afterwards. And you can't graft that on like a branch onto a tree 2 or 3 years afterwards. It's too late. It has to be embedded from the beginning. And that's what draws people in to become part of your team, to make sure that you're consistent and authentic with whatever it is that's important to you, whether it's a social impact platform with what you're creating and what your why is. It always comes back to what your why is. Once again, entrepreneurship is hard, and when things go wrong, if it's all about the money, you're going to bail, and it just won't be sustainable.
That is great, Colin. So I just have one more question. It's because you've seen many, many ideas, and you can see how the ideas or trends or theme of ideas changing through the time, right? So what do you think, what is more trendy idea is in these days?
Let's see. Well, I just want to say what trends are, what spaces are frothy, I guess you can say. Clean tech is definitely a space. Health tech also, those are spaces that there's massive growth in that. The space that I'm involved with, people even say, what is sport tech? And that's why I spend most of the time in the US, both with investors and other partners, because they get it there. They're about 3 or 4 or 5 years ahead of where Canada is, unfortunately for us. So that's why we spend our time business-wise down there. But, VR, AR, augmented reality, for the last couple of years, it kind of spiked at the beginning. And then it's like, well, what do we actually do with this thing? And how do we commercialize that? How do we monetize that? And those things are starting to coalesce. So I think there's going to be great convergence in that space, especially when it's combined and dovetailed in with health tech. I know some startups that are involved in that space, and I think that's very interesting. So I think between health tech, clean tech, those are two very frothy spaces. And with technology, whether it's still, I know other spaces like we saw a couple of years ago, Bitcoin and crypto, and everybody was all hot and bothered with that. And I avoided that because people were just involved with that because it was all about the money. And rather than, well, is this a technology? Is this just a tool, or is this actually solving a problem, or is it just a tool that helps solve a problem? So I think those two spaces especially are ones. And with other partners like Foresight, Clean Tech Accelerator here in Western Canada, if you've got a clean tech startup or idea, that's another place that can help with that. I know our friends in Surrey with Startup Surrey in the group there with the Health and Technology District and what they're doing in the health tech space there with their incubator and accelerator and programs. So there's all these other groups, not only here locally, but also across the country that we can help connect you to. And that's what we do with Startup Vancouver.
Colin, I love where you bring this and you bring it back to this, the idea have relevance. Does it sustainable? Not chasing the money. And I think this is the difference between real entrepreneurs and, that you discussed there. Colin, we always like to give our guests, I want to say the final word, but we want our guests to give us any golden nuggets that we haven't covered, any questions we haven't asked you. Can you give us some of the goods that maybe our audience can benefit from?
Sure, absolutely. And I learned a lot of these things that I'm just going to take from the over 90 episodes I've done on my podcast when I'm talking to entrepreneurs in the golf and the sport innovation space. So now I've got over 90 mentors and ambassadors for what I do there. And all the entrepreneurs I see is like, what are the quality and the traits that make for a successful entrepreneur? And I've over time embraced these also, and I've gotten better and I've gotten stronger at these and a lot of the traits I didn't have. And that's always be curious. Always ask questions, and you can build up resiliency also as an entrepreneur. You have to become resilient, and that's something that you're not necessarily born with. Empathy that ties into asking questions, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's not just all about you. Those are key pieces and kind of foundational success traits that I've seen successful entrepreneurs embrace and exude. And once again, don't try to go it alone. And there's lots of people and resources that want to help you. And park your ego on the side and ask for help, which is hard for entrepreneurs. A lot of them, we're charismatic and we're energetic, but also be patient and realize sometimes things have to come to you. I know in the golf space, the things that we first put out there in 2013, even though that didn't hit and we didn't get the ultimate result that we wanted, it spun off into other things. And that, in a way, it was almost 7 years too early. And now through technology and just through the way that humans interact, that has kind of come to us now. So we're excited about that opportunity, even though we put that one on hold many years ago. We've reimagined and reshaped what that offering could be, and now have a better idea of how we can actually price that and add more value for partners as a B2B platform.
Colin, you know that Vancouver is a land of immigrants, and a lot of immigrants come they've been entrepreneur in their home country and they want to pursue and be entrepreneur here in Canada again. So what is your recommendation for our newcomers to this beautiful country and they want to pursue as an entrepreneur here? What the step they take at the beginning?
Well, thankfully, there are resources out there. And Startup Canada is a great resource also to help connect you to the opportunities and to each other also as a new Canadian. And a great example, again, is last year one of the Advanced Startup Story Speaker Series themes we had was celebrating new Canadian entrepreneurs. And I set the criteria if you've been here less than 5 years, and had 5 awesome entrepreneurs share their diverse, engaging, compelling stories and their journeys. And once again, it's that story that then other entrepreneurs can see. And that's part of that diversity and inclusion piece. If you want to be one, you need to see one. And seeing these other people that have then traveled that journey, you can reach out to them, and it gives you more confidence that you're not alone on this. And that's about that whole connectivity piece too. To end with something like that is, once again, is what we do here is we love to give the stage to entrepreneurs that come from this rich tapestry of our society, entrepreneurs that look like Canada, across the spectrum, and give them that opportunity to tell their truth and share their story.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So Colin, great. How do people get involved in Startup Vancouver? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, the best place is we are very active on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, our Facebook, and our LinkedIn page. That is the best way to connect and see all the events that we have. As I mentioned, the weekly What Keeps You Up at Night show that we have, and then also the monthly, or it looks like it may be even bi-monthly, Can Startup Story speaker events that we have. And we also on there put all of the other events that we co-present and that we support within our ecosystem. And that's what we do. So we're here to connect you as entrepreneurs to all these other resources. And I use this analogy as we're kind of like you have with whether it's Daily Hive with Vancouver or Do 604 or Van 604, which is this aggregator or these tastemakers for this platform for all the great happenings, entertainment, food, music that are happening virtually now, that you would go is like, well, what am I going to do? What do I want to see? And we do that rather than doing it for food and entertainment and music. We do that for entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. So that's the best place to connect with us. You can also connect with me. Best places on LinkedIn, also Twitter. So the best place to find me. So in the show notes, if you want to include those as far as connecting with me, love to talk to people and get them involved. And my ask, as I said, as an entrepreneur, you need to have an ask. And since we're virtual right now, we need help rebuilding our Startup Vancouver website. So if you're someone that wants to get involved and help with that, whether you're a UX designer, kind of a full stack developer, and want to get involved with that, we would love to have you come on board and get involved with us as an entrepreneur and a community builder.
Love it. Great. Colin can be reached at startupvancouver.org. And of course, we'll put all his contacts in the show notes so that you can reach out to him, and especially with this entrepreneur opportunity.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much today. Appreciate the time.
To all entrepreneurs and managers out there, we have ambitious students here at UCW who would love to hear from you and help you with your business through our internship, our capstone program. If you think you have a wonderful story or a challenge that you want to share with our students and our audience that you think they can benefit from, we want to hear from you. We want that information. We want you to be a part of this show. We also want you to join our mentorship program. We've got a great mentorship program to help students as they move on their educational journey towards getting into a career or launching a new opportunity. So reach out to us, connect with us at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel.
You have just listened to the Innovation Fuel podcast with your hosts, Dave and Gillere. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Google, or Spotify. Join us next week for another innovative story. Thank you for listening and have a great week.